Good morning, everybody. It's 9:30, so it's time to begin. And welcome to week 5 of Business IT. Now, if you've looked at the video material, you'll of course know that we've started today on, sorry, not the video material, the lecture material. We've started this week on networking, which is an important part of any business information system. And we do get into the nitty-gritty a bit of networking protocols and so on. That's really necessary so that when you're dealing with IT people, you don't look a complete ass for not knowing the basics. And even though it looks a little bit theoretical, it is quite important that you have at least a basic understanding of networking and the various protocols involved in networking, because that's the sort of thing you need to give advice to your clients about. I just want to say a couple of words about the assignment that's due at the end of this week. I've had quite a few questions about, you know, do we need to have an executive summary and so forth? The answer is no, you don't. It is about a page long max. What you should be concentrating on is the technical advice that you would give to your client, the information systems, the information systems that would be required to solve the problem of the that your client has. So it doesn't need to be anything fancy. I do need to be able to understand it, so don't make it so brief that it can't be understood. Make sure that you have covered the various products that your client needs. I just want to emphasize again that it is very important that you recommend particular products. It's not much good just saying you need a transaction processing system. That's true, but it's not much help to your client. So make sure that you actually recommend particular products. And where it's possible to do so, and sometimes it is a bit difficult, particularly with networking, wide area networking products, sometimes it's a bit hard to get a price, but where you can, get as close a price as you can. This will be helpful for your group if your group chooses to go with your recommendations for the group part of the project. So the mark for the first part is out of 5. If you have recommended products that cover all the requirements of your client, plus pricing, at least some indication of pricing, and it looks to me as if it will be a solution that works, then I'll give you 5 marks. The setting out and so forth isn't, I won't give you marks for that. Of course, if I can't understand what you're writing, then of course you don't get any marks. So make it so that I can understand it, but the actual formatting and how pretty it looks and so forth doesn't matter at this stage. It does, of course, matter very much for the final, the final product that your group will be issuing. Now, make sure too that, no, I wasn't going to say that. I was going to say following that, of course, then you start working on the group assignment. So if there are any questions about that, you can pop a message on the live chat and I'll get to it before the end of the lecture. Otherwise, send me an email and I'll try and sort it out. I have had a few so far. Okay, so when will I get this marked? Next week is actually going to be quite a heavy week for me for marking. The lab notes are due to be marked. I've also got marking for another course coming up. So, although I'll try and get it done by the end of the week, I'm not promising. Following next week, of course, is the mid-semester break. So that gives me a chance to get it done. But I hope, well, I promise to have it done during the mid-semester break. That'll then give you 2 weeks to work on it as a group after you've seen your feedback from your individual recommendations. What the group then needs to do is together to work out which of the individual recommendations they're going to go with. You might, of course, select little bits from different parts. One from one member of the group and another part from another. But this particular, the group assignment is definitely one that has to be client ready. There is a marking scheme attached to the end of each of the case studies for each group. Have a good look at that because that's how I'll be marking it. There's a section there which talks about being useful to the client. I can't remember the exact words, but that's the part where I look at carefully to see, have you written your report in a client-friendly manner? And there's also a section of marks which says there, is it ready to go to the client? That section of marks gives me an opportunity to have a look at the way you've presented. And my question is, if I was a senior partner in a consulting firm and I was looking at your report, would I send it back to you to be written again? Or would I send it back to you for minor corrections and additions? Or would I send it out as it is? Now, if I think it's ready to go straight to the client, then you're into the regions of 98%. I think I gave one group last semester. Back from that, if I don't think it's at all ready, then you mightn't get any marks for that section at all. So that's basically what I'm looking for. And please, again, if you've got questions, just ask. Okay, there's a question here about the pre-lecture test, which I will look at in just a minute. And it was a question about in the pre-lecture test, there is a question on IP addresses of a router and a system with multiple options to choose from. Can you please explain how to answer these type of questions? So I'll do that in just a few minutes. Okay, so what I'll do now is to go back to looking at the screen, and just have to. I might deal with that question now. Pre-lecture test. All right. pre-lecture test, there's a question on the IP address of a router. Systems with... Raoul, could you give me an indication of which question that is that you want me to talk about, please? Can't quite see which one you're talking about there in the pre-lecture test. Okay, so I might just, while we're waiting for Raoul to come back with that one, I might just go through the slideshow on how to write the report. So this is at the very bottom of the lecture. So this is about how to guide your client in the recommendation section of your report. Now, the recommendation section is probably, it's a pretty important section because this is the place where you're actually giving advice to the client as to what they're to do. So it's not just a matter of repeating what you've said before. What you need to do here is to actually say, this is what you want to do, this is what you need to do next. So you need to buy this product, hire somebody to install this product, or whatever it is that you want the client to do next. So it's really important. It is one step at a time. Okay, so I was just looking at Raoul's reply. I'll come back to that in a minute. So, really important thing in writing a report is to be really clear what you're saying to your client. There is a bit of a tendency for techo people and students, of course, to assume that the client has knowledge. Because, you know, I know it, therefore my client knows it. Now, I don't know about you, I'm not too good at reading minds. So you don't want to make that assumption at all. Try and, when you've written your first draft, read through it again and think to yourself, if I was the client, I think I've forgotten to, I might have forgotten to share this. I better do that, sorry. I very carefully forgot to share the screen with, see if we can get back to there. Right, okay, so I'll just do that again. Remember to give clear guidance to your client. Make sure that when you read it through the first draft, think, if I was the client, would I understand? So there might be things that you've assumed they know, just really think hard. Would I understand this if I was the network neighbourhood nursery or Terry's Logistics or the computer shop or Pastries A Go-Go proprietor? Would I really understand what I'm writing here? Now, they need clear guidance. Don't assume that, okay, you've delivered your wisdom, they are going to know what to do next. The answer is they won't know what to do next. So make sure that, particularly in the recommendation section, step-by-step instructions as to what they should do to make it happen. Okay, so don't assume that they're wise enough to work out what to do next, because they're not. And that's what recommendations is all about. Of course, as a consultant, you want follow-up work. This is one of the things that recommendations can do. So if you're in a consulting company, there'll be people in your company who just love to actually do the implementation. So this is an opportunity to sell the next bit of work to your client. You don't want to do that in such a way that's unethical, of course. Remember that ethics are important, but don't forget that you want to sell the next bit of work to them. Now, that probably happy to do for you to do that. Because if they've developed some trust in you, then they'll be happy to trust you again, hopefully. If you've done a terrible job, of course, then you're the last people they'll get to do the work. But don't forget that in the recommendations. Okay. Recommendations are usually placed at the end of the report or near the end, before the appendices. Make sure that there's a clear heading, because they will look for the heading, recommendations. So if you don't put the heading in, they won't know what it is. I say this because lots of students in the past have forgotten to do that. So just remember to put the headings in, make the headings clear. And okay, so here we are. What the recommendations do? They give you step-by-step suggestions, including the budget, engaging other people to help them, and something that TECO people often forget, the process of change management. A new information system will mean that people will work in a different way from the way they worked before. So there's going to be changes. So that's really important, that you suggest ways in which they will have to change the way they're working. Otherwise, if you don't make these suggestions and they just keep working in the old way, they may as well not have even bothered talking to you in the first place. They need to change their practices and processes, and unfortunately, inexperienced management, often experienced management too, just think that it's going to happen automatically, and it doesn't. So staff will need training. How's that going to be managed? Who's going to do it? So make sure your recommendations include that. All right, now if you follow those guidelines, all will be well. My problem is that most people don't follow the guidelines, or a lot of people don't follow the guidelines. They write the report and forget all the advice they were given. So don't let that be you. Make sure that you have everything included. So, okay, that's the thing on the how to write recommendations. So going back to Ralph's question about, I think this one was the question he was asking about. All right, which statements are true of the internet layer of the TCP IP 4-layer model? Okay, the IPv4 protocol has 4 byte addresses. Is that right? I think it is. 192.168.0.1 sounds like 4 bytes. So we'll put a tick there. IP protocol routes packets from the source host to the destination host. Yes, I think so. That's a tick. Port numbers are used to identify the session to which the packet belongs. That's true. The IP protocol guarantees delivery from the source host to the destination host. And that's not true. The TCP layer does that, not the IP layer. So I hope that's helpful. Oh, he means from the, oh, right. Sorry, he was not talking about that one. Okay, so it's the quiz in Blackboard he's talking about. So let's see if I can find that. Oops. Okay. Let's where's that gone? Might be easier if I go into the edit mode to deal with this. Okay, it was about IP address and the router of a system. Okay. Just trying to work out which one that is. All right, that's the number 7. Okay. Okay. Routers have an IP address on the network, and they're usually either at the beginning or the end of the range. Valid IP addresses that can be used for hosts go from 1 to 254. And it's usual to put the router either at 1 or 254. In RMIT, they're almost always 254. Almost everybody else that I've seen puts them at 1. But that's the valid range there. Okay, so now the C can't be right because it's in the wrong subnet. It's 10.1.1.1 instead of 10.10.1.1. That's why that one's not correct. And the D is unusual to put a router other than either at 1 or 254. All right. I'll just go back to the lecture notes. Okay. I think I've covered most of what I want to talk about for the lecture there. So I think I might, rather than keep everybody bored, are there any questions from people who are here there? Anybody got any questions? Yes?
What length is the individual part of the
page maximum?
So 1 page?
1 page. Okay.
And you said by the end of week 5, does that mean Friday or Sunday?
Technically, it's 5 o'clock Friday. I assure you I will not be working over the weekend.
Right.
So you can work out from that, from yourself, what I really mean. Yep. All right. Don't try Monday because there's a date. I can tell when it was last edited, so if it sort of strays into Monday, then I might be less than impressed. Okay. All right, another thing perhaps I should mention is that I've had a few people who haven't finished their class activities because they thought I was marking it every second week. I did point out to them that I actually did have the date in which the class activities are due written in the lecture notes. They've asked me to mark them again. I will not. I might do that this week, but I will not do it again. If you're late with your class activities, I won't be going back. It takes quite a long time. It's quite a nuisance. I end up running. I seem to have very little spare time this semester, so going back to remark stuff is not something that fills me with excitement. So I will eventually go back to people who've asked me to look at things again this week, but this is the last time I'll do it. And the same goes with lab notes. If you're late with your lab notes, well, week 6, when I'll start, that's for 4 and 5. Don't expect me to go back and have another look later. If you're late and I get to it before you do, well, that's bad luck. But I have done it up till now. I've gone back and remarked, but unless there's some technical difficulty, the technical difficulties by now should have been ironed out. No broken links and things like that. It's week 5. If you haven't got that ready by now, then you know there's something wrong. So basically from week 6 onwards, I'm expecting you to have sorted out all those problems with broken links and links that go nowhere and what have you. So if you show me a home page where the links don't work, I'm sorry, you don't get the marks. So make sure it all works. Test it on the server. And get to me before the deadline if you have trouble. Otherwise, I'm sorry, no marks. You have been warned. Okay, so there's a question from Kayleen. Would there be any other sort of intervention that we could possibly get with regard to the network design part of the assignment? Quite sure what you mean by that, Kayleen. Could you pop up another message and just clarify what you mean there? Well, I'll try and anticipate what Kayleen might be saying. I'm not quite sure what she'll say, right, just to clarify a question there. Basically, we're looking if there's a networking part of your recommendations, basically, is it going to work? And here's the answer. No, it's not. It has to work for the particular client, and it has to be affordable. So if you're a, I don't know, trucking business, which has got one person in the office using a cloud service, you don't want anything, don't need anything super fast, so it's not worth paying for it. But also you don't want something that is hugely expensive. So you've got to balance expense with functionality. And in the computer shop, seeing they're trying to run stuff from a server, again, you probably can't recommend anything that's too slow there, because that will mean that the responsiveness of their application will suffer, particularly at the store that doesn't have the server in it. So you need to get a balance out there with the networking. Still hasn't responded, so I'm going to have to leave that. That's about the half hour for this part of the lecture. I will now I'll stop the streaming and I'll go to the Google Hangout, and perhaps Kayleen could get in touch once we've gone to the Google Hangout. So I'm going to stop the broadcast now, and the Google Hangout link is on the second of the appointments for this period this morning. So all the best. I hope that you do well in the assignment, and look forward to reading what you suggest.